I'm David Pettit. I'm an attorney here at NRDC in Santa Monica. I've been practicing law over 30 years, and most of what I do here is litigation involving air quality, energy issues, and environmental justice issues. Proposition 7 is an initiative that says it's going to speed up the rate that we have renewable energy here in California, and that's a worthy goal. It's a very good goal, and NRDC supports that goal. The problem with Proposition 7 is it's very, very badly drafted, so bad that in my view, and in the view of NRDC and every major environmental group in the state, it's actually going to retard the bringing new renewable energy to the state rather than speed it up, and that's why we're opposed to it.
Say it did pass, how would that affect kind of the average person?
Well, in a number of ways. It would affect people, first off, in their pocketbooks, because there's a very odd pricing mechanism in here that basically allows and encourages all of the alternative energy providers to give their power to the state at a very high price, regardless of whether they could have priced it lower. So basically, it does away with price competition. So we're going to see that in our pocketbooks. And for consumers who actually care about where their power comes from, which I hope is most people who are watching the film that you're making, they should be concerned because, as I said, if Prop 7 passes, I think that it's going to take longer to reach our renewable energy goals rather than, as the Prop 7 proponents would say, quicker. And that's because it's so confusing, so badly worded. We're going to have years of litigation before this thing actually shakes out. Also, there are provisions in it, there are some loopholes in it big enough to drive a truck through. So if people say, well, this is going to force the utilities to do what we want them to do, actually it's not, because oddly it's way too lenient in the way it treats the new goals that it wants the utilities to have. There's a huge list of people who are no on 7. Every major environmental group in California has taken a no position. Every major newspaper in California that has editorialized has said no on 7. The Democratic Party, the Republican Party, business interests, the Chamber of Commerce, labor, organized labor is against it. Senior organizations, minority organizations like MALDEF are against it. The renewables industry, oddly enough, you think they'd be for it, they're against it because they can see how badly it's written.
And what is the governor's stance?
I don't know what the governor's stance on this is. The governor has supported increasing the renewable energy portfolio, which we at NRDC support also, but I don't know that he's come out one way or the other on Prop 7.
I'm going up to the polls. I'm looking at the ballot. What would you like them to remember?
I'd like them to remember, don't be fooled, that it looks good on a casual reading, but when you get in the details, it's really a bad initiative. Also, I know a lot of people are affected or biased because the big utility companies are also against Proposition 7, and it is a case of odd bedfellows because we often here at NRDC are adverse to the utilities. I mean, I'm involved in a lawsuit right now with Southern California Edison, so it's not like we're doing their bidding, but people should not be put off if they dislike the utilities. People should not be put off by the fact that the utilities also are opposed to Prop 7, but people who care about the environment should take a look and see that NRDC, Sierra Club, Union of Concerned Scientists, League of Conservation Voters are all against Prop 7 also. All natural adversaries, and we're all on the same side of this one because it's just so badly written it's not going to do what the proponents say it's going to do.
And what would be your solution?
My solution would be, and I've proposed this to the proponents, is let's sit down in a room together. I think in an hour or two we could fix the drafting errors and then put something on the ballot that everyone would be for. And the problem with doing that, the proponents have said, well, we can just, it's an important issue, let's just pass it and we'll clean it up later. The problem with that is that there's a 2/3 requirement in the proposition for any amendments, and we've just seen up in Sacramento, it's hard to get a 2/3 vote on anything. So it's more than disingenuous for someone to say, oh, let's just pass it and then we'll fix these little, nitpicking details, as they like to say, later. I have no confidence that that would work. Again, NRDC has been attacked as being, puppets of the utility industry here. There's nothing in this for us. I mean, NRDC is not going to, get any more money or any less money or have any more or less status, whether Prop 7 passes or not. And that's the same with all of the environmental groups. And it's the same with, as I said, the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, business, labor. There's really nothing in it in the way of financial changes for us or any of these groups. This is just a purely policy difference between us and the proponents. And it's even, maybe not totally accurate in saying that. I mean, we all agree that we need to have more renewables in California and less dependence on fossil fuel. We agree with that completely, and NRDC has been active all across the country in trying to stop, for example, new coal-fired plants, which are a terrible thing for global warming. And so we want, not just in California, but across the country, more renewables and less fossil fuel power generation. But where we disagree with the proponents is whether this thing, Proposition 7, is a good way to get there.
And what about the proponents? Why are they pushing this? Why yes on 7?
The proponents' argument simply is to say it's I've debated the proponents many times by now. The proponents' argument is basically to say, look, it's a serious problem, and we need to act, and we need to stop nitpicking, and by the way, the environmental groups are all in bed with the power companies. So rather than engage on the merits of whether Prop 7 is well written or not, they try, in my view, they're trying a smear campaign by saying, well, there are the environmental groups, they're all, they're getting money from the utilities, and you need to look at the utilities, the big bad utilities and the like. And there's not one debate that I've done on this where people have been willing to engage me on the merits of what's actually in here. Now, I have no reason to think that the billionaire whose money is behind this, it's basically one guy who made his money in the University of Phoenix, that he has bad intention. I mean, he may, for all I know, and probably does think that we need to have more renewables in California, and I agree with that. But unfortunately, the people who drafted this really didn't know what they were doing, and they made a mess out of it.
And is that how you personally got involved?
I got involved. Well, it's funny. When I first read about Prop 7, I thought, well, this sounds like a good idea. And then when I took a look at it, I thought, I'm trained as a lawyer. I do this kind of stuff for a living. And when I started going through this and parsing it out and trying to figure how these sections work together, I thought, this is a mess. This is a mess, and it's not really going to get there. And at that point, I began speaking out against it, which I've continued to do. Okay, if you think about the people who install the small solar, as well as the business owners, the small business owners who are in the business of doing that, they'll be out of work instantly. One of the debates I did, a woman came up to me afterwards in tears, and she said she and her husband have been working to try to get into the small solar business, and she was very concerned about what was going to happen if this thing passes. And I had to tell her, I'm sorry to say this, but I think if it passes, your business is dead.
Yeah.
And I don't think that the proponents of this meant that to happen, because it's crazy. It's crazy. If you like renewables, you should be encouraging the small solar developments and encouraging people to put things on their roof and the like, not discouraging them. But I think that the reason that it's in Prop 7, again, is because the people who drafted it don't know what they're doing. And it's a mistake, but it's a mistake that would be very difficult to fix if this thing passes, again, because of the 2/3 requirement.